All right, everybody. Hello. How you guys doing? This is Uncontrolled Opposition, and I am Jayme CheeseSlice, the engineer and producer of the show. Today, Gloria is out. Normally, she does their monologue. But today, Jeremy's going to fill in and do a monologue for you because Gloria is on assignment at covering the Nicolas Maduro trial in New York right now. So, without further ado, before we get to that, let me just let you know, if this is the first time you're watching Uncontrolled Opposition, this is first and foremost a radio show that is on WBAI and the Progressive Radio Network. And we have to record that anyway, so we decided we'll do it here live on YouTube for you to see. And oftentimes we run over and stuff that gets cut from the YouTube show doesn't make it into the radio show. You get to see it right here on YouTube on the live stream. So without further ado, let's go ahead and bring in Jayme, the host for today. Jayme, good to see you again. As always, every week, it's always a pleasure. And we'll bring in our guest, Alfred. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine, and thanks for inviting me.
Thanks for coming back. It's good to have you on as a guest again. We are going to have Jeremy run the show today. He's going to open the show. So let's go ahead. I'm going to hand it over to him, and let's do it. I'm sure it'll be a good one.
Hey everyone, welcome to Uncontrolled Opposition, where together we battle mind wars with truth strikes. I'm Jayme Kuzmarov, managing editor of Covert Action magazine. My co-host, investigative journalist Gloria Guillo, is on location in Manhattan, New York, covering the hearing of kidnapped Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and First Lady Celia Flores. We hope Gloria will be able to join us later with an update on the hearing. Our producer and engineer is Jayme CheeseSlice. The opinions you hear are ours and that of our guest, not those of WBAI, the Pacifica Foundation, or the Progressive Radio Network. This content is intended for informational and educational purposes only and should not be interpreted as professional or legal advice. Listeners are encouraged to form their own opinions. Today, we welcome back a most distinguished guest, an expert on the promotion of democratic and equitable international order, an expert in international law, which today is being eviscerated, Professor, attorney, author Alfred De Zayas. He draws on more than 4 decades as a senior UN lawyer, rapporteur, and independent expert. Professor De Zayas will be discussing his latest article titled Iran in the Light of the Nuremberg Principles, published by Counterpunch on March the 23rd. In this important article, Professor De Zayas argues that the U.S. and Israeli bombings of Iran, specifically the February 28, 2026 strikes and earlier attacks in June of 2025, constitute unprovoked wars of aggression and serious war crimes in violation of the Nuremberg Principles that were established after World War II. Professor De Zayas contends that these actions breach core international law norms against aggressive war, as codified in the UN Charter, the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court, the 2010 Kampala definition of the crime of aggression, and UN General Assembly Resolution 3314 from 1974. De Zayas frames the U.S.-Israeli campaign not merely as opposition to Iran's government, but as an assault on the United Nations Charter, international law, morality, and civilization itself, emphasizing principles of sovereignty, non-interference, and the right to peace. Professor De Zayas calls for the International Criminal Court to initiate an investigation and issue arrest warrants for those responsible. Thank you. Professor De Zayas, please explain why and how the ICC is selective in its focus and outline what should be done in light of this illegal and immoral war against Iran that is on the heels of the genocide against the Palestinian people and the kidnapping and incarceration of the President and First Lady of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro, and Celia Flores.
We are witnessing an assault against civilization, against the most fundamental rules of international law and diplomacy. And you have witnessed perfidy. In the middle of negotiations back in June 2025, the United States and Israel attack Iran. Now, in the middle of negotiations in Oman and in Geneva, the United States and Israel again attack the negotiators. They try to decapitate the government. I mean, this is barbarism. I mean, we haven't seen something like this really for many, many, many decades. That the United States and Israel that try to project an image of democracy, rule of law, etc., is such a farce. It is such an insult to your intelligence and to my intelligence. These people are behaving like international gangsters. In international law, that used to be called hostis humani generis, enemies of humanity, enemies of the human species. As the case may be, the International Criminal Court could act. All of these crimes committed by United States and Israel in Gaza, in Lebanon, in Iran, they fall under the definition, or under the Articles 5, crime of aggression, 6, genocide, 7, crimes against humanity, and 8, regular common war crimes. As the case may be, these all reflect and absorb, if you want, the Nuremberg principles that the General Assembly adopted back in 1950. Now, our United States, I say our because I'm an American citizen, the American chief prosecutor at Nuremberg, at his very opening statement, said that the indictments of the Nazi aggressors.
I think Alfred has paused for a second. So I know he's in the mountains in Switzerland. Oh, go ahead. We lost you for a sec, but continue.
I see. Going back to the Nuremberg principles and to Robert Jackson, our chief prosecutor, the whole idea of the Nuremberg principles was to create new international law that would be applied to all countries. The idea is to prevent the commission of the crime of aggression, to prevent the commission of genocide, of crimes against humanity, of war crimes. And all of that has been betrayed. But of course, with the complicity of other countries. I mean, it is shocking. The political, economic, military, diplomatic support that European countries like the United Kingdom, France, Germany have given to Israel. It is shocking that the mainstream media in the United States, United Kingdom, France, Germany, even here in Switzerland, is favorable to the United States and Israel. Now, I am a well-known critic of the Iranian Ayatollahs. I have spoken for no less than 20 years about the crimes committed by the mullahs. I have incorporated that criticism into my reports to the General Assembly and to the Human Rights Council. I have demonstrated in front of the Palais des Nations here in Geneva about the fatwa that Ayatollah Khomeini in 1988 had issued that led to the execution, or rather assassination, of 30,000 detainees, political detainees from the opposition. So I am no friend of the Ayatollahs, but we cannot be silent when perfidy is being committed, when 170 girls in a girls' school are being targeted and killed, when a country like Iran that has 5,000 years of history is being devastated by carpet bombing, by the United States. Now, the fact that Iran retaliates, the fact that Iran has attacked American bases in Qatar, in Kuwait, in United Arab Emirates, etc., that is classical self-defense that is justified under Article 51 of the UN Charter, which establishes that if you have been the victim of a military attack by to repel that attack until the Security Council takes over. Now, the Iranians are perfectly willing to work with the Security Council in finding a solution to this problem, but they are the ones who have been aggressed. They are not the aggressors. And going back to the International Criminal Court and its responsibility, after all, it is the highest international criminal instance that we have in the United Nations system. This International Criminal Court, however, has a dismal record over the last 24 years since the Statute of Rome entered into force. I mean, the only persons who have been tried in The Hague are former African leaders who have been ousted or former military. And instead of using Article 15 of the Statute of Rome, which grants the prosecutor the right to investigate and to bring to the judges a proposal to indict other individuals who have committed crimes of aggression, genocide, war crimes, and crimes against humanity. I'm talking of the legal briefs that were submitted back in 2003 against Tony Blair, against George W. Bush, and the legal briefs that have been submitted recently by a collective of French lawyers against Emmanuel Macron for complicity in the genocide in Gaza, against Prime Minister Meloni of Italy by a collective of Italian lawyers, against Friedrich Merz by a collective of German lawyers. And I myself, I'm in the directorate of the Geneva International Peace Research Institute, and we have consultative status with the United Nations. We submitted in May 2024 a 29-page legal brief on the issue of the complicity of the European Commission, the European Council, Ursula von der Leyen, Kaja Kallas, in the genocide in Gaza. And besides the fact that we had acknowledgement of receipt, nothing more happened. So a year later, in May 2025, we submitted a second brief expanding on the original brief. But the International Criminal Court has not acted on our briefs or on any others that have identified the criminals as being American or British or French or German, etc. So there is an obvious double standard here. And it is shocking that the mainstream media puts up with this without any significant criticism. Now, I believe in international criminal justice. I believe in the usefulness of the International Criminal Court if it is professional, if it acts pursuant to its mandate. But what we observe in the ICC, as we observe in many other agencies of the United Nations and intergovernmental organizations in the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, in the International Atomic Energy Agency, in the um, uh, I was just thinking of another one. The fact is that they all apply double standards, and that it seems like they are in the service of Washington and Brussels. And then we, the people in the United States, uh, in in Latin America, in Africa, in Asia, etc., we have no one to turn to because these organizations are not doing their work. Now, back in the 1990s, I was a professor in Chicago, and I cooperated, and we published a book together. I cooperated with the late Professor Sharif Bassiouni, who was actually the author of the Statute of the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia. And we both wrote several articles concerning the utility of expanding on universal jurisdiction so that there should no longer be impunity for the leaders of countries such as the United States, United Kingdom, France, Germany, etc. And unfortunately, 30 years down the line, I am very disappointed at the development of international criminal justice. And I'm sure that Sharif Bassiouni would be just as disappointed. But let me talk about my experience in the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights. As I said, I was hired back in 1980 by Professor Theo van Boven, the predecessor of the current High Commissioner. He was the director of the Human Rights Office, and I became the principal lawyer for the Human Rights Committee, which is the expert committee that investigates violations of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. And I must say, for the first 20 years that I worked in the office, we were extremely professional and neutral. In the late 1990s, I started to feel political pressures, and political pressures that came from above. I mean, from the then High Commissioner, and I felt that I could not perform my function properly because there were political pressures and double standards that were being imposed on me. And I also had a rather unpleasant encounter on two occasions. The CIA approached me to be a mole. And I said quite honestly, look, I don't have a gift to be a spy. I mean, my character, my temperament, I cannot have a coffee with you in order to draw information out of you and then half an hour later report to the CIA. I mean, you'll see it on my face because I'm a very bad actor. And my state of mind, you can read it in my eyes, you can read it in my body language. It's uncomfortable for me. So I told them no. And to my surprise, 2 years later, they came back and they tried to recruit me. Now, I do not know whom they eventually recruited, but I'm persuaded that they recruited one or more of my colleagues to place them in the service of the CIA, and the same thing goes for the Mossad, and the same thing goes for the M16. So, no doubt, most institutions are penetrated by intelligence services, And there's also the problem of recruitment. A person like me today would not be recruited. I mean, I would be eliminated in the first interview. And the moment they realize that the potential staff member has, shall we say, moral compunction, has a moral compass. If it doesn't seem like he's going to just follow orders and toe the line, he won't be hired. And beyond that, the United States is in the habit of parachuting senior officers into the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights and other agencies. I mean, we have two very senior people at the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights today that come from the State Department. And that also is very discouraging for the staff, because if you are a staff member who has been working professionally and you have expectations of some kind of career development, that once you reach a certain level, there's no more career development, because the top jobs are given to political appointees who very frequently know nothing about the subject matter, but they still will give you orders, which are political orders. So you see that there is a need to reform the system. That's why I wrote my book, Building a Just World Order. I have a whole chapter talking about the weaponization of human rights. I talk about the need to transform the rule of law into the rule of justice. I propose a new human rights paradigm, a new functional paradigm of human rights. Of course, there's been no follow-up at all on that book. And then I wrote the book, The Human Rights Industry, to show that it has become a business. Not only the human rights industry, but also many agencies are actually a business. A lot of paper pushers and people who are following political instructions. Going back to the crisis today, because Gloria is in Manhattan at the show trial, kangaroo trial of Celia Flores and Nicolas Maduro. And I have no trust whatever in the judgment that may come out of these proceedings. I mean, it's well known that the CIA fabricates evidence, and they did so, by the way, in the case of the Iran-Iraq war back in 1980 to 1988. You may recall the case of Halabja, the Kurdish village that was wiped out with mustard gas by the Iraqis. Well, the CIA actually, for 3 years, maintained the narrative that the attack actually had not been carried out by the Iraqis, because the Iraqis were doing our dirty job, but the attack was actually carried out by Iran. And they actually fabricated evidence to show this. But then when Saddam Hussein in 1991 invaded Kuwait, then it was necessary to get rid of them. And so, first of all, we had Desert Storm, we had the destruction of Iraq and Baghdad and Mosul, etc. And I still remember, because at that time, 1993, 2 years after the war, 1993, I was professor in Chicago. And at University Club, we had invited a senior CIA member, and who was telling us about the war. And he was gloating. He was boasting that most Americans thought that we had only killed about 5 or maximum 10,000 Iraqis, whereas he knew, and the Pentagon knew very well, that we had killed way over 100,000. And personally, I have done some research in the area, and I know quite a few Iraqis. I believe that the actual death toll for Desert Storm was twice that, more like 200,000. And then we imposed the sanctions on Iraq that led to the deaths of 1 million Iraqis. And when UNICEF came out with a report that 500,000 children had died as a direct consequence of these sanctions, they interviewed our then Secretary of State, Madeleine Albright, in 60 Minutes. And they posed the question, Mrs. Albright, in the light of the report of UNICEF that 500,000 children died, was it worth it? And Madeleine Albright pauses for a moment, and then she says, "Yes, I think it was worth it." I mean, anybody can see it. It's in the internet. That kind of people. That's what we are, barbarians. It's something that it's difficult to accept because I really believed, as a matter of faith, that we were the good guys. It never occurred to me that we were the villains. And we have been the villains for a very long time. And it's not just from today. It's not the legacy of the slave trade and the legacy of chattel slavery in the South. It's also the extermination of 10 million indigenous Americans, the First Nations of America. I'm talking about the extermination of the Algonquins and the Crees and the Cherokees and the Iroquois and the Mohawks and the Lakotas and Dakotas and the Sioux and the Hopi and the Squamish, etc. And when back in 1970, believe it or not, I hitchhiked from New York to California. And the thing that struck me was that there were tens of thousands of names that were all indigenous. And I said, of course, Manhattan, Delaware, Potomac, Chicago, Iowa, Mississippi, Minnesota, etc. You say, where are these people? Of course, we put them into quote unquote reservations, which were basically concentration camps. And we really smashed culture and smashed them physically. And something that simply does not make it into American history books. If you read Martin Luther King's Jr. Book, 1964 book, Why We Can't Wait, it's interesting. Go to page 141, and you will see a section that begins with these words: "Our country was born in genocide." And he's not talking about the American Afro-Americans, the slaves that were brought to the United States. He's talking about precisely these indigenous tribes whom we falsely refer to as Indians when they have nothing to do with the Indian subcontinent. So keep that in mind. Our country was born in genocide. But if it doesn't make it into history books, people are not aware of this, we can maintain the illusion that we are the good guys. But what to do? I mean, right now we have this frontal attack on international law. We have this frontal attack on the United Nations. But we need the United Nations. Even if the United Nations has been penetrated, even if it does not function properly, if we didn't have one, we would have to create one. If we didn't have an office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, we would have to create one. Because even if the agencies don't work properly, it's better to have these agencies than not to have anything at all. I mean, we need rules. I mean, civilization means an agreement to live under rules and to play by the rules of the game. And that is what is being attacked. I mean, it's no longer the rules of the games, but only the rules that we invent as we go along. And that is super dangerous, and that can lead to World War III. I'm highly concerned about what is happening in the Middle East because, okay, Iran does not have an atomic bomb, but Israel does. And if Israel thinks that it's going to lose the war, I would imagine that Israel is going to use the atomic bomb against Iran. And Pakistan, uh, and I'm no friend of the government of Pakistan. I'm a friend of the Pakistani people, and I know many, and I have interrelated with them in the United Nations over decades. But the Pakistan government would be capable of getting involved in this war against everybody uh, uh, in the Middle East. And how about Turkey? Turkey has the most proficient, biggest army in the Middle East. What if Erdogan decides that he is not going to tolerate greater Israel and is going then to throw his army and his navy against the state of Israel? This is super dangerous. I've been a pacifist all my life. I used to go out on the streets and demonstrating against the Vietnam War back in the late 60s and 70s when I was a student at Harvard. And I don't want an escalation of this war. I want an immediate end to the war. And when Trump says that there are negotiations going on with the Iranians, now apparently J.D. Vance is now in Pakistan for negotiations with Iran. I haven't followed it closely, but what's important is to have golden bridges for the United States and Israel to withdraw discreetly without losing too much face and realize that they failed in the decapitation of the Iranian government and that they will have to live with Iran. If they continue escalating, I mean, this could very easily take us to World War III. Now, what can we citizens do? We can, of course, write to our congressmen and congresswomen and to the senators, and we can write to the media. But what I would like to see is the General Assembly to take its responsibility. The General Assembly has a responsibility for the maintenance of international peace and security if the Security Council is blocked, and that is the case that obtained today. The Security Council cannot function because of the veto power exercised and abused by the United States some 80 times in order to shield Israel from international responsibility and from sanctions. Now, what can the General Assembly do? Adopt a resolution called Uniting for Peace, going back to the Korean War and Resolution 377. Uniting for Peace was also used in 1956 during the Suez Crisis, was used in Katanga, it was used in Zaire during the Congo crisis of 1960, 61, 62, etc. So it can be used today. And then the General Assembly could recommend to all states and therefore give all states, shall we say, a legal basis to BDS Israel and BDS the United States. Rhetoric is not going to solve the problems. The fact that Antonio Guterres says that United States attacks on Israel are contrary to the UN Charter, yes, everybody knows that. But what are you going to do about it? And since the Security Council cannot do anything about it, then the solution would be for the General Assembly to adopt such a resolution uniting for peace and recommend to all member states to cease purchasing weapons from the United States, to cease purchasing F-16 and F-35s and Patriot missiles and General Motors and Boeing and Lockheed Martin and Raytheon, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, if the United States is hit economically, that it no longer sells and makes a profit out of the war, then the United States will look for a way to end the war. If China, for instance, were to immediately divest from all of its considerable investments in the United States and divest by selling its $1 trillion worth of US Treasury bonds, that would make an enormous impact. If every country that has been financing the United States through the purchase of US Treasury bonds, if every country were to say, okay, fine, we don't buy anymore and we're going to sell those that we have, that would be a financial catastrophe for the United States. And as you know, we already have more than $39 trillion of national debt. Basically, we're bankrupt. And we've been financed by the rest of the world, but maybe the rest of the world should say, maybe we won't finance you anymore. And then China could also, for instance, refuse to sell any rare earths, lithium, and God knows how many others, to the United States or to Israel. That would impact both countries significantly. So I repeat, one measure that could be taken individually by states, but also by the General Assembly, would be to recommend a BDS campaign against Israel and the United States. I would also like to see more success for your kind of journalism, for the kind of journalism that we see also with Max Blumenthal and with Glenn Greenwald, with Aaron Maté, with the Real News Network and others that try to give us a different narrative about what is going on. I am shocked to see that here in Switzerland, the press is just as manipulated as in the rest of Europe. The Tribune de Genève, which is the newspaper of record in Geneva, is aligned to the narratives of the New York Times, Washington Post, CNN, BBC, etc. And so is the Neue Zürcher Zeitung, which is Switzerland's most important newspaper. I myself publish regularly in alternative Swiss newspapers, including Le Courrier de Genève, including Zeitgeschehen im Fokus, including Zeitfragen, including Schweizer Standpunkt. And all of these very good publications are read in Bern. But unfortunately, they all seem to be afraid of the United States. I mean, our government, I'm also a Swiss citizen, our government in Switzerland seems to be intimidated by the United States, and they have been catering to the United States for decades upon decades. And so do you see light at the end of the tunnel? I think that a strategic defeat of the United States and Israel in the Iran adventure, a strategic defeat will usher in a new world order, a new world order that will no longer be hegemonic, will no longer be ruled by the United States, but will be multipolar and will be more responsive to the needs of the global majority. And when I say the global majority, I'm talking about the countries and the people in Latin America, in Africa, and in Asia. Uh, that would be, my hope. And I have read the analysis by Professor Jeffrey Sachs of Columbia, by Professor John Mersheimer of Chicago, by Professor Stephen Kinzer of Boston, by Professor Glenn Greenwood and Glenn Deason of the University of Southeast Norway. I mean, they are all writing, shall we say, they're all on the same page, together with former CIA analyst Larry Johnson and former CIA analyst Ray McGovern and retired Colonel Douglas MacGregor, et cetera, et cetera. I would hope that more people, I would hope that the internet would help us escape the stranglehold of the media and the stranglehold that in past years was the hallmark of Western media, Western mainstream media, that basically brainwashed the American people, brainwashed the Brits, brainwashed the French in supporting what Naomi Klein used to call disaster capitalism. And it is actually obscene when you see, for instance, what recently Larry Fink said, the CEO of Blackstone. I mean, Larry Fink 3 weeks ago was talking about the great opportunities, business opportunities, opportunities to make a lot of money in post-war Iran, because the idea or the premise was that the Iranian government would collapse, and then we would put in the son of the Shah, who would then do our bidding. And so there would be once again a puppet government in the service of Washington and in the service of the Western hegemony. Well, it doesn't look that it is that easy. And we are actually going straight into a worldwide depression with energy prices skyrocketing. And they're going to get much worse. It's not only the closing of the Strait of Hormuz that is a problem here. It is the fact that Iran, which is fighting an existential war, Iran is capable of knocking out the production of petroleum in Qatar, in Bahrain, in Kuwait, in South Africa, in Saudi Arabia, etc. That being the case, if in extremis the Iranian leadership decides to use what might be also termed a nuclear option, all of us are going to suffer enormously. And the Gulf Cooperation Council, the GCC, has, of course, at the Human Rights Council in Geneva and elsewhere, been blaming Iran for the whole crisis, etc., whereas Iran was aggressed. And of course, Iran is not blind to the fact that the Gulf states, the Arab states, have more or less cooperated with the United States and Israel, that they have been hosting United States bases in the Gulf region, and that they, of course, pose a threat to Iran. So don't be surprised if you host American bases in your country when your country gets attacked. So this is common sense. But of course, we're so caught in our own web, in our own narratives, that even the voices of reason from Mearsheimer and Sachs are not being heard in Washington. I mean, I hear them, but not everybody. So another point I wanted to touch, the so-called Board of Peace. This is such an insult to your intelligence and to my intelligence. The Board of Peace that Trump has proposed is no more, no less than a board of genocide management. It's a board of colonial management. The idea is to reestablish European colonialism in the Middle East and have the United States call the shots and have, of course, a greater Israel that would be the superpower in the Middle East. That, of course, won't work because Turkey will not allow it. Turkey wants to be the major power. But I'm concerned with the destruction of language. I mean, this man, Donald Trump, who aspired to the Nobel Peace Prize, I mean, it is so ridiculous. It is such a cognitive dissonance in this term Board of Peace. I mean, it makes you immediately think of George Orwell and his 1984, and makes you think of the three rules in Oceania, rules, propaganda, and indoctrination. War is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength. I mean, everything turned on its head. And this destruction of language and this relentless propaganda that we get in the media, that explains the mess that our leaders have brought us into. And of course, it also is an impediment to getting out of the crisis. You know the expression, if you want to get out of the hole, stop digging. But we continue digging. And I don't see a significant revolt in the United States against the policies of this madman called Donald Trump, whom I consider to be not only a mega criminal, I consider him to be a dangerous psychopath. I consider him to be a megalomaniac, a malignant narcissist. And that is not the image that many MAGA Americans have of Mr. Trump. I mean, I would like to see more discussion with the former counterterrorism chief, Joe Kent, who had the gumption to resign in protest against the war in Iran. And this is a high-profile person who has shown courage in identifying the web of lies of the administration, and the fact that the administration culpably ignored his warnings. And I am most disappointed in Tulsi Gabbard, because I think if I were in Tulsi Gabbard's position, I would have resigned on the first day of the Iran war. I would have said, I have warned you, Mr. Trump, that the Iranians are not interested in building an atomic weapon, and that they're not building it at present, and they do not pose an imminent threat. And she evidently prefers her well-paying job. That is a disappointment to me and to many Americans that she has not been consequent on this issue. But what lessons do we draw from the attack on Iran? Namely, that if you want to protect yourself from imperialism, if you want to protect yourself from an unprovoked attack by the United States and Israel, you better have your own nuclear weapon. I mean, Iran did not build its own nuclear weapon, otherwise it would have already used it. But didn't even want to. There was Ayatollah Khomeini had issued a fatwa against building an atomic weapon because he considered it incompatible with the Quran, incompatible with the Islamic faith. But as the case may be, what lesson have we given the world that if you cannot defend yourself, you will be attacked? And that is precisely the reason why back in 2003, the father of Kim Jong-un, the father of the current president or leader of North Korea, stepped out of the non-proliferation treaty pursuant to Article 10 of the treaty. It was entirely legal for a country that is bound by the NPT, like Iran, to say, well, I'm no longer going to be bound by the NPT because I have been aggressed. I am subject to constant threats. Therefore, I need to defend myself. So I need an atomic bomb. And that is what Kim Jong-un has done. And of course, he poses a threat to his neighbors, not only in South Korea, but in Japan and the US base of Okinawa, that certainly Kim Jong-un could hit. So having said that, you see how vast the problems are that have been needlessly created by Donald Trump. And I was hoping that Gloria would come online and bring us up to date with the kangaroo trial against Nicolas Maduro. But that is another example of a revolt against international law and international morals. I do not recall any case in which a country has actually kidnapped the head of state of another country, killed 100 people in the process, etc., in order to try him. I mean, we do remember that the venerable George H.W. Bush back in 1989 attacked Panama and killed, I don't know how many thousand Panamanian citizens, and then took Manuel Noriega, the president, to try him for drug trafficking. But of course, people tend to forget that Manuel Noriega had been in the service and in the payroll of the CIA for many, many, many years. He had been our son of a bitch. He had been doing what we wanted him to do. And then when he was no longer useful for the United States, then he was accused of drug trafficking. I have no doubt that he was involved in drug trafficking. And he was taken, I think it was to Miami, not to New York, and then he was tried. The United States also engaged in kidnapping in the case of the Venezuelan diplomat Alex Saab. Alex Saab was on official diplomatic mission and his private plane made the mistake of landing in Cabo Verde in order to refuel. And Cabo Verde had him kidnapped and sent to the United States. Although, by the way, the Human Rights Committee, I used to be, as you probably know, secretary of the United Nations Human Rights Committee. And also the African Council of West Africa issued orders, what is termed as provisional orders or interim protection orders, prohibiting the extradition of Alex Saab to the United States. But of course, Cabo Verde caved in to U.S. pressure and did so. And poor man was sent to Miami to have a kangaroo trial in which actually, if I remember correctly, it never ended. He was still in the process. He'd been detained for 5 years, and then he benefited from an exchange of prisoners. So he returned to Venezuela. But imagine what it means to ignore the Vienna Convention on diplomatic relations and to kidnap a diplomat. And the same thing, there is immunity of heads of state. Imagine that Russia would suddenly decide.
To wrap up, Stein. So just finish your thoughts, and then tell our audience how they can purchase your books or contact you.
Well, I mean, just to wrap this up, our listeners should understand that the situation is extremely grave because the very foundations of civilization are being attacked, are being put into question. And we are still being brainwashed with a false narrative emerging from Washington and Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, etc. So if you want to learn more about the penetration of these agencies, if you want to learn more about the juvenalis question, quis custodiet ipsos custodes, who shall guard over the guardians, then you will have enough food for thought in my book, The Human Rights Industry, which also could have been called the human rights business, because it has largely become a business. And even non-governmental organizations like Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch very often play the game of Washington and Brussels. And I must say, I've known excellent Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch professionals, excellent. But I've also personally known many bastards whose names I would not like to divulge. But as I say, I always tell my audience, don't waste your money. Don't give a red cent to these organizations. Save your money for organizations that are actually going to help people. And I don't trust these organizations. They're too big. And also they all draw huge salaries, et cetera, et cetera. It's a disgrace, when you give $10 and you realize what salaries the head of Amnesty or the head of Human Rights Watch is getting. But
all right, we're going to have to wrap that up. So thank you so much for your terrific insights, Alfred. This has been a wonderful hour, and we've learned a lot from you and your experiences and knowledge on this topic. And we heed your warning that this is a very, very dangerous moment and situation, and that people need to mobilize together to oppose what is going on and fight for a better future. The opinions you hear are ours and that of our guest, not those of WBAI, the Pacifica Foundation, or the Progressive Radio Network. That wraps up our show for today. This is Uncontrolled Opposition. I'm Jayme Kuzmarov. Remember to like and share our broadcast. Your kind support keeps us going. Please find us on Substack, Twitter X, and Podbean. Thanks for tuning in. Hope to see you next week.
Thanks, Jayme.
Thank you, Alfred. That was very, very terrific.
Thank you so much.
I really appreciate
We are still live. Guys, we're still live right now, just so you know.
Okay, well, I've got to run to another appointment, so. Guys, we're still live right now. But
yeah, well, I'm going back to tomorrow morning. I'll be on the slopes, and
okay, you enjoy yourself.
I'm gonna send you photos from yesterday. On the black slopes of Belalp. So take care.
That's wonderful.
Alfred, it's amazing.
Thank you for your insights.
Off the top of your head, I mean, you just could talk an hour, and everything you had to say is absolutely pertinent and relevant to
right on the mark.
Needs to hear.
It
really
needs
appreciate
to be widely heard.
Yeah.
Okay, well, take care, everyone.
Nothing like Jeff Sachs and John Mersheimer. I mean, they're much better. And
I think you're right on par with them.
They're also not being
and you have you have the experience and the legal expertise that's very valuable. So
you're kind of tying it up.
Experience with the United Nations. So
you kind of connect the dots in a different way from them, which I think is also important for other for people to hear.
I do have my own, shall we say, spice to it. It's not exactly. I love Jeff, and by the way, his wife is just as bright as he is. His wife Sonia is fantastic, and I know John, and I know I used to know Christopher Black, a great lawyer in Canada. And
I knew Christopher Black. He was wonderful.
Professor and Francis Boyle. Francis Boyle, who died on the 30th of January 2025. I remember I was giving a lecture in Mallorca, in Palma de Mallorca, and I got the bad news on the 30th of January. I was quite shocked because I had contact with Francis a couple of weeks earlier, and he had written me that he was furiously correcting exams. Which is something that I could say myself, because when I don't like correcting exams, because I like my students and I don't like to give bad grades. And then you get so disappointed when you say, gosh, they were not listening. They didn't get the point, or they didn't read the stuff, That's, but as the case may be, I'll send you some photos from skiing.
Okay, and, you take care. Yeah.
Send me the link when you have it. Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to be putting it up shortly, so I'll email you.
Very good.
We'll be in touch. Yeah, we'll have future collaboration.
Pleasure. Definitely. I actually, if Counterpunch had not taken the article on the Nuremberg principles, you were going to get it next. And,
and send us
Jeff St. Clair. Jeff St. Clair usually prints my stuff, and I had not given Jeff any articles since the 5th of January, and I thought, maybe he's entitled to get one again.
Well, it's good to mix it up. Yeah, you can do some with him and throw one our way as well. Yeah.
I will gladly do so.
While we're talking about your articles, do you want to talk about this one you sent us to share from 2023?
Well, I've got to run because I have another appointment. So
I'll wrap up the show if you got to get out of here.
Very good.
You just you sent this to us to talk about this in case we
needed to be in case that the connection had fallen, which falls all the time. Huh? For instance, yesterday evening we had a storm here. We were skiing yesterday morning, and early afternoon it started getting black. The sky turned black, and it started storming, and it was a blizzard. I'm looking out the window here in my chalet, and it's all white. Here we got only about 4 inches, but up there it was meter of snow that actually fell at the top of the mountain. And now I'm worrying, maybe I won't be able to ski tomorrow because there might be avalanches. But going back,
I'm jealous that you can still ski because I'm only like 50 years old and my knees can't take it anymore. I can't do it.
Well, I tell you, when I was about your age, when I was 50, I decided that my knees had a limited number of hours, and those were reserved for skiing. So I gave up everything else. I gave up jogging. I gave up tennis, which was a pity because I used to enjoy tennis a great deal. And but skiing gives me a special high. And besides, my wife is a better skier than I am, and we love to go skiing together. This season, we have skied 17 days. So we always come to the chalet and try to ski.
Oh, I think we just lost you. Well, skiing is fun. I loved it. I used to do it all
Whenever we can
well,
fit
not
it
all the
in.
time, but
And
we're dropping you a little bit here and
yeah,
there.
but again, I don't have the energy that I used to have before, and there's certain black pieces that I would never do again. Which were so frightful. They're like
Yeah.
walls. Like that. And
Well, I didn't get to do as much skiing as I really wanted to, but I was a skater on ice skates, and so
my
I did
wife,
skating all the time, but that wrecked my knees, and then I just can't.
yeah,
My knees can't handle
skating
the
is
skiing.
gorgeous too. The last time I did some good skating was on the lake called the Lac de Joux, which is in the Canton de Vaud, not far away from us, about an hour away from us. And that was a very cold winter, and it really froze solid.
Man, that's cool. I've only
S-
gotten to skate on like a real lake once, and it was really, really awesome. Anyway, as
Now,
much fun
I
as
don't know whether
as
you
we're
remember.
talking.
Did you see? You're much too young to have seen it because it was a big movie when I was a kid. When I was at Harvard. Did you ever see Love Story with?
No, I haven't seen that one.
It's a great skiing scene. Ryan O'Neal, who played the Harvard skater, and his girlfriend was Ali McGraw, gorgeous woman. I followed those people, from since I was a student at the time. I knew where they were filming, so I would go there and try to be a statist, try to be in the movie. And there's a fantastic scene there. They're skiing on the Charles River, and the Charles River is not a good place to ski. I mean, because it never gets, it has too much current, and it doesn't freeze over very well. And of course, it breaks under their feet. But of course, they laugh it off. It's. I would say the first half of the movie is a feel good movie. It's gorgeous, and then second half is when she gets cancer and eventually dies. I mean, it's a lovely movie, and came out in 1969 or 70 when I was still a student at Harvard.
And they had all
good.
but they had all these scenes, and this was back before CG, way before CG, so everything was real when they would show
Yeah.
that stuff.
Oh,
Yeah.
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 And I just think that the guy who cut the film must have hated me because there's a scene in which Ryan O'Neal goes up the I don't know 100 steps of Widener Library. Our big Harvard library is called Widener, and it's very imposing with huge columns. It's a very big building, huge columns, about 100 steps to go up. And so he was going up, and I would go up and down, up and down, up and down. And I was cut out every time because when the movie came out, I was not on it. And I said, I tried so hard. But I can't imagine the person who was cut and said, oh, there's that bastard there again, that idiot. So they effectively got me out of it. Yeah. But those were
You
also
tried to sneak your way in.
we used to demonstrate, with the big placards, and they would say, if you don't stop the Vietnam War, we will stop the government. We will stop you. And once I was super lucky because they sent the police against us, and we had occupied the administration building. And that one day, I had a very bad cold, and I didn't feel like going out again. So I didn't go out. And that was the day when the police came and beat my friends over the head with sticks.
Oh, man.
Oh yeah. I got away with it. I not only that, they got arrested, and
Yeah.
so I was never arrested. I've
But
never
this is,
been
I
in
mean,
a.
but what you were doing then is what people need to be doing now, sadly, because to push
Well,
back against this kind
they
of war.
you remember they pushed back in Harvard and in Michigan and in Berkeley and at Columbia, and see what Trump did against them.
Yeah,
And
yeah, it's horrible.
he has criminalized the exercise of freedom of expression and freedom of assembly and freedom of association. I mean, it's a fascist government. Uh,
Yeah. And what
Not
we're
that I
seeing
like.
now is not the first time we've seen this in history either. And it's just the same people are in power and they're doing the same things they've been doing for at least the last 200 or 300 years.
Oh yeah.
Um, and hopefully, maybe if we do have, well, I think World War III has already begun. I think it began on February 28th. But
Well,
hopefully, an outcome
I
from
hope
World
you're
War III
wrong.
will
I
be an
hope you're
end to
wrong.
that power base.
I hope you're wrong because, uh, as Einstein said, I don't know uh, with what weapons World War III is going to be fought, but World War IV will be fought with sticks and stones.
Right. Yes.
Because I mean, the amoebas will survive, and the cockroaches will survive, and maybe the rats will survive.
I have faith that a few million humans might survive
Yeah,
underground in certain parts of the world on the other side, wherever the nukes are used, and they'll be able to survive to some degree.
yeah.
But
But I mean, I just don't
yeah,
understand the intransigence of these people.
no,
I mean,
it's I don't. That's why
why
we'll never
don't they
be able to work with
realize
them.
that it's for heaven's sake, just stop, pause, have a coffee. What's the idea of destroying Iran and destroying all of these UNESCO World Heritage Sites in Iran? Iran has a fabulous history. It's a fabulous culture. Again, I
Yes, it
detest,
does.
I detest the Ayatollahs, but I mean, we created the Ayatollahs. I
Hmm.
mean, they had a good democratic government with Mossadegh, and then we overthrow the democratically elected prime minister and impose on them this puppet called the Shah.
Hmm.
And then the Shah, in order to please us, tries to completely transform Iran overnight into a modern capitalistic society. I don't know. There's someone who had a lot to do with that because he negotiated. He went to Iran on numerous occasions. Was Professor Richard Falk. By the way, I have not heard the name Richard Falk mentioned in the press for a long time, although he is the president of the Gaza Tribunal, and the Gaza Tribunal issued a judgment in Istanbul, and it also issued several press releases, if I remember correctly, from New York last year, 2025. But whereas I hear John Mersheimer all the time, and I hear Jeffrey Sachs all the time, I have not heard Richard Falk in a YouTube or any other kind of streaming for at least 4 months.
Hmm.
And worries me because, of course, good old Richard is 92. What do you want? He's 92. And that's also why you don't hear anything from Noam Chomsky.
Right.
Uh, I
Yeah.
remember Noam because I met him when I was a student at Harvard back in the late 60s and 70s. He was my hero. And when I was lecturing at Harvard in 2013, at the time I was rapporteur, and I had to fly on to New York to present my report to the GA. But first, I was lecturing at Harvard, and then when I finished my lecture, I jumped on a cab and went over to Noam. And he's such a nice man, such a kind person. In any event, I said, "But Norm, how can you stand it for the last 55 years? You've been writing the best analysis of the world situation, etc., and things are getting worse, not better. And then I remember he looks down at me and says, Zayas. He didn't say De Zayas, or he didn't say friend or anything. He says, Zayas. We do what we can.
Yeah.
Then he threw his hands up and said, and what we must. That was it. And
That's kind of the feeling I have. Like, why we do what we're doing here is
Yeah.
because, we don't do it because
You
we
have
think we're
to.
going to win. We do it because we have to.
You have
It's
to.
like,
I mean,
yeah.
it's a sort of thing that you feel so impotent when you cannot at least articulate your frustration.
Mhm.
And I'm glad that Jeremy publishes me, and I'm glad that Jeffrey St. Clair publishes me.
Right.
And
There's still
but these
some
are
out there.
things. I mean, these are not articles that I think out. This is usually a gut feeling. I mean,
Mhm.
something has happened, something has upset me, and then I just go on my computer and just type something, and then I send it out. And
I wish I had that skill. I mean, you have no idea how many times I'll just be sitting around spinning my gears, talking out loud. I'm like, I just been thinking out loud for an hour. If I knew how to take that and put it onto paper, I could write articles too. But I don't have that skill really to take my thoughts and put them
but
down.
you know what the best therapy is? Maybe I send you a couple of them. The best therapy to escape the chaos, besides skiing, of course, skiing is great, is translating.
Hmm.
As you probably know, I took my doctorate in history. I took my doctorate in law at Harvard, but my doctorate in history in Göttingen in Germany. And my German is as good as my English. And I published years ago a uh, a book of translations from Rainer Maria Rilke, who's one of my favorite poets, and that had two editions. It's still in print. It's still selling, and because of that was so well received, the German publisher Suhrkamp in Berlin. It's the publisher that owns all the rights for Hermann Hesse, for the entire Hermann Hesse Nachlass. And so they approached me and say, would you like to translate Das Lied des Lebens, which is a collection of 220 poems? And I said, I love Das Lied des Lebens, and it would be a great honor. But you realize I have other things on my plate. And I'm a professor. I have other things to do. And he says, well, we'll wait. So took me a few years. And when I finished it, I sent it to them, to the chief editor of the Hesse archives. And he fell in love with the translations and said, but well, just to be sure, I'm going to send it to two Hesse experts. And he did. Now, that took 6 months. And then they came back with suggestions and said, well, we love your images. We love you. You're very successful getting the rhymes, but you don't always get the meter. You don't always get the rhythm.
Mhm.
You use iambic pentameter when he uses a trochean. And I said, well, try to do it yourself. Because sometimes the language compels you
Yeah.
to a different rhythm. Because I mean,
Right.
the rhythm of English is not the same as the rhythm of German. And but in any event, I looked at their suggestions. I implemented most of them, those that I
Mhm.
could implement, and I sent it to them now. And now the whole thing is with two American publishers, and they're negotiating to see whether it comes out. But if you send me your email, because I have only the email of Jeremy.
Oh, really? Well, you have it. I think because I'm the one who sent you the links
But
for the day.
I don't remember. Yeah, but it was not under Jayme CheeseSlice.
Oh, that's true. I have a totally different email than the one I use
Which
for the
was
show
it?
here. What's
Which
that?
was it?
My
Which was
real
it?
email? Oh, I sent you one the Pasta to Go email.
I will look for it because I mean I
So
haven't
that's
erased
your
it.
Well,
because
you
I
can
just
find me
used it.
there.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. So
Yeah,
I'll
I'm sure you still have it.
send you a couple of translations there. Also, I mean, he has a poem he wrote shortly before the Second World War. It's only two strophes, but it's applicable today completely. It's called Late Summer.
Mhm.
And he has an image that I had never seen anyone who had that image. Is, the world is going to pot. I mean, it's going to, go down in howling wars. And he says, but let's celebrate the good things that do remain. Let's water your flowers, sing them songs. Can you imagine going to your garden and singing songs to your flowers?
Well, this is around World War II too.
Yes, that
We're
was
in the
he wrote it
face of World War II.
shortly before World War II because he saw that the world was going very badly and this was going to
Mhm.
explode. And but of course, his probably his most famous poem is called Stufen, which means steps. But I don't translate it as steps because he's actually talking about stages in life. So I think steps would have given you a wrong feeling for the poem, and that is one of my favorite ones. It's so um, in a way so optimistic, so forward looking, and he was pretty damn old when he wrote it.
Mhm.
Um, but again, I mean, he had a good life. I mean, unlike Rilke, who died at 51 of leukemia, and apparently a very painful leukemia, Hesse lived it up, and he died at age 86, having gotten his Nobel Prize for Literature. Such a great guy. And I mean, people know Hesse as a novelist. They don't know him as a poet. And he is at least as good a poet as he is a novelist, if not better. And also, the head of the archives of the Hesse archives wrote a beautiful preface for my translations. And I also had to translate it from German into English. But in
I
any
know that's no
event,
small feat because I've watched people who've had to like translate. I mean, whenever you translate lyrics for a song, I mean that's probably the most challenging, like feat in literature to do because you, like you were saying, it's even more important to keep the meter and the rhymes, which is going to be really challenging when you're translating it into different
yeah, the
languages.
question they actually wanted to. They insisted that I put in the rhymes, and I say you can frequently kill a poem by forcing a rhyme. And
Mhm.
it took me an inordinate amount of time to find a rhyme that didn't look forced, that looked
Right.
just quite natural. That you don't even realize that you're rhyming.
Mhm.
You just read the text, and it just sounds so good.
Mhm.
So it's
I've written some
it,
parodies before, and if you want to write a good parody, that can take a very long time. And it's like because you're not translating, but you're in a sense you're translating because you got to keep the structure of the original, and it's got to sound like the original, but you're using completely different words, and they got to fit in that framework, and it's got to make sense and tell a story that is relevant to the parody.
I mean,
It's
for
an
those things,
extremely challenging task,
the moment
and
you are in this psychological world, you're making a parody and you want it to click
Mhm.
with your audience. You cannot use AI. I mean, I just
No,
for the
it
hell of
won't do
it.
it. No, you can't. I will say the last one I did, I used AI to help me find words to use, but I
Exactly,
didn't use what the
exactly.
AI spit out.
No, the
But it helped
AI.
me
I
come up
mean,
with words I never would have thought of to use.
for poetry, it is almost useless. On the other
Yeah, you
hand, it
can't write it on
might
its
give
own.
you one or two words that you didn't think of. Might
Mhm.
give you an image that you didn't think of.
Yeah.
But it's not too bad if you are having a regular article and you just
I I've never used it for anything like that either.
yeah.
I actually
No, I
try to
mean,
stay
just
away
for
from it
fun,
mostly.
I put Stufen into the AI to see what came out, and it
Mhm.
was absolute crap. Absolute
Yeah, but
crap,
sometimes that crap
useless.
But sometimes it's really funny though,
Yeah,
because
it
it's so
is.
bad, it's just hilarious, and
You
then
know,
that can become its own thing.
when it gets it completely wrong, because there are words that have different translations,
Mhm.
and it depends on not only the context, it depends on the mood that you're trying to convey.
Mhm.
That's why you picked that word and not another one that means the same thing. And but as I say, when you are very depressed or you're being mobbed, and believe me, I was mobbed at the UN. In my last years at the UN, I took early retirement to go back to teaching. I had pretty tough years, uh, 98, 99, 2000, 2001. Um, and
And that was kind of at the
uh,
end of when, like, the old guard was moving out, and then the new guard, which is in charge now, was
well,
coming
I
in.
think I retired when Sergio Vieira de Melo was beginning. And I liked
Mhm.
Sergio. As a matter of fact, I spoke with Sergio a couple of weeks before he was killed. Um, I think I would have had a good career, but I had gotten myself a professorship, and I needed to breathe. I needed to do
Mhm.
something else. I mean, I had been subjected to a kind of harassment that I said I didn't deserve. And I thought that, the High Commissioner had betrayed all human rights in what she was doing. And I felt, shall we say, disillusioned. And as
Yeah.
such, I said, I need a change of environment.
Well, I see it
Even,
like the late '90s, early 2000s. It seemed to be there was this Zionist, or more in America, more specifically, a neocon takeover of government and power.
well,
And they're tied with Zionism uh, today for
yeah,
sure. But it started in the late '90s, and
yeah,
like
yeah, I
there
do.
was a good
I
sense
saw
of
it.
people who did believe in a lot of these principles that America was supposed to be founded
Yeah,
on, freedom of speech and all that. But those people were run out. And a lot of the people you mentioned at the beginning of the show, like the Larry Johnsons, Larry Wilkersons, a lot of these people who show up on Judge Napolitano's show,
yeah.
um, they all were working in government back then, and those
Mhm.
people would not even be able to be in government today.
Of
I
course,
don't believe they'd get hired at all, but
exactly.
they're
They
all
would not be
gone.
hired. No.
But at least they're still on the internet talking to people, telling everybody what's going on. So if you get out of the mainstream media ecosystem, get into the alternative media, you still can get that information, and you're getting good information.
Well, I send it to
But
all my
they're not
students.
being
Huh?
part of government, and not being in part of power, that is a big problem. We need people like that. And I don't know who in the younger generations are going to be to step and fill those roles, because we don't get people like that. If you get people like that in, they get run out, or they have to shut their mouths so they can keep their jobs and pay their mortgages.
Yeah,
That's
exactly,
pretty much
exactly.
where we're
I'll have to leave you because my wife just said she wants to talk to me.
at. Well,
So
thank you for sticking around. I did want to
we'll
talk
we'll be in
about your
touch. We'll
article,
be in
but we
touch.
got
Yeah, yeah.
sidetracked.
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. Okay, take
Yeah.
care.
All
Bye
right.
bye.
And just thank you for joining us. And this was your article that you sent us. And maybe next time
Right.
you join us, we can
Just
talk about
if
it.
anybody wants, send it to people.
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Certainly. Certainly. I find it
Yeah.
interesting because this Who Guards Over the Guardians reminds me of Who Watches the Watchmen when I was a big comic book
Yeah.
guy. So it seems
Exactly.
like it's very much tied into that. All right.
Very
So
much. Yeah.
everybody at home, thank you for joining us today. This is Uncontrolled Opposition. Thanks to our guest. Thanks to Jayme. I'm going to try to get a hold of Gloria to get a report on her experience at the trial
Then
for
let me
Nicholas
know.
Maduro.
Let me know. Send it to
And
me too.
I'm gonna try to tag that on to the end of the radio show. But thanks for watching at home. This is Uncontrolled Opposition. Thanks to Craig Pasta Jardula. He's executive producer of this show, and he lets us put it on his YouTube channel. So we'll be back next week with another episode. Thanks for watching. See you next time.
Splendid. See you next time. Bye bye.